As if the news could get any worse, Félix Bautista out for the rest of this season and maybe longer. Zach Eflin out as well. Hello, everybody. I'm Jon Leiberman. This is Orioles Digest all season long. We've been bringing you, unfortunately, bad news, and we come to you with even worse news right now, which is news that could impact, will impact the 44 remaining games this season. The season's already done with for all intent and purposes, but it could also have an impact on next season. We're going to talk about the Félix Bautista injury. We're going to talk about the Grayson Rodriguez surgery. We're going to talk about Zach Eflin being out for the rest of the year. And we're going to talk about the progress of Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells. And should they even be brought up to the bigs at this point with, 2 months left, less than 2 months left, 44 games left. Again, like, subscribe, do all of the things because we're here for you the rest of the year. It ain't pleasant, but we are definitely here from you. You're going to get to Suarez, who you just saw in a moment first, but let's start with Felix. Out for the rest of the 2025 campaign. Okay, but, and if you read between the lines of the Mansolino said that Bautista has an appointment scheduled later this week to determine the severity of, quote, a significant shoulder injury. Now, I've been around long enough to know that even before he goes and gets his appointment, if the manager uses the word significant, that is setting us up for the likely scenario that this could be a long-term injury for Felix. We'll know more later this week, but I think we're talking about something that potentially goes into next season as well, and that would be just heartbreaking for the Birds because the Birds clearly need a closer. The bullpen's decimated anyway, clearly need a closer. And if Felix isn't ready to go for the beginning of next year, then you add that to your wish list in the offseason. In addition to everything else. This is what Tony Mansolino had to say today. He said, we got 15 starts or so out of Zach Eflin, none out of Grayson. We felt it all year. I think as you go through the trade deadline and what happened here early in the year with the staff changes and the things that went on, I don't think today's a day of finality by any means. It's just something we've had to take on throughout the year and put our best foot forward, and I feel like we have in a lot of ways. Tony trying to put a decent spin on an otherwise dismal day. Look, I will say this about Tony Mansolino. Let's get out of this video again. You heard about I just told you about the Felix injury. We're going to get to what Zach has to have in a second. Look, Mansolino, to be fair, hasn't been given a fair shot at being the interim manager because of all of these injuries and all of the tumult and everything. He hasn't had a healthy team to deal with. Then it's sell at the deadline. So we can't really even judge Tony Mansolino in really any way except to say that he has done a pretty good job with what he's been given. It's interesting to note when we talk about Bautista's injury, Mansolino did make it clear that the shoulder injury was not something that Bautista was dealing with prior to the All-Star break. So, of course, it begs the question, are we just pushing these guys who have repeatedly gotten injured? Are we just pushing them back to the bigs too fast, putting them in high leverage situations too quickly? I don't know the answer to it, but there is clearly a problem here. And we can look quickly at the numbers for Felix. Just fabulous numbers this year for the most part. Only 3 homers in 34 2/3 innings. He struck out 50. The 2.6 ERA, solid. And just solid numbers for Felix. You hate to see it. We'll know more later this week. You hope it's not worse than it. You hope it's not. You hope it's not going to go into next season, but indications are that it may. Now you hope that Grayson Rodriguez is back and healthy. And then you add to it, Zach Eflin. Now, Zach is scheduled to undergo a lumbar microdiscectomy in his lower back. Typically, this is not major surgery, but Zach Eflin has a history of back injury, so who knows how he will jump back. You see the numbers. I mean, look, he's been on and off the IL this year. He's only pitched 14 games for the Birds. He started off well, 71 innings pitched. His ERA is hovering near 6. But again, the Zach Eflin injury has an impact on 2026, for a variety of reasons as well, which is, Zach, what will become of Zach in the offseason? Who's going to want to pick him up, et cetera, et cetera. And so, again, the news is very bleak. This is Tyler Wells, who we're going to get to in a second. Tyler Wells rehabbing right now. What we do know is that Wells is going to have 2 to 3 more rehab outings. Unclear if he'll be a starter or a reliever when he comes back. Tony Mansolino left open the option of a 6-man rotation. Bradish is going to have 2 more rehab starts and then be back up in the bigs as a starter. And Albert Suarez, who begins his rehab tonight, Tony Mansolino said, will be brought up as a bulk reliever, a long reliever, basically, because the Birds don't have many arms out in the bullpen. Now, look, I think an argument could be made that you leave all 3 of these guys. This isn't going to be a popular opinion, but you leave all 3 of these guys at the minors and just take it super slow, because at this point, the Birds, it's a must-have at this point. You have to have a healthy Bradish, Wells, and Suarez going into 2026. It's a must. Obviously, Rogers has been pitching really well. Cade Povich had a good outing. Dean Kramer's been fairly solid. So there is a path forward for the Birds, and then all the young talent they have that they could package up this offseason. But the more injuries, the more needs you have in the offseason, the more you're going to have to give up and the more desperate you become as you go into the 2026 campaign. At this point, we know the Birds need a middle-of-the-lineup bat who's going to stay healthy. Hint, hint, Tyler O'Neill. We need a frontline starter who can hopefully stay healthy. And we need bullpen help. Do we also now need a closer? We don't know quite yet. Lots of ramifications to this, though, not just for this season, which is lost, but into 2026. I'm Jon Leiberman. This is Orioles Digest.